Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today is Patricia McKnight. Patricia is an author of a book called My Justice. Her book was inspired by her life. Her life is unforgettable. You will not forget the experiences that this woman has lived and written about. Please welcome Patricia McKnight. Hi, Trish. How are you?
I am fine, Rebecca. Thank you. This is such an honor. And I must say that I heard your very empowering speech on the teleconference yesterday for Safe Kids Now. And you really touched my heart from a very special place. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm honored to have you because people like you who have, may I say, graduated from hell, change people's lives. And sometimes the greatest empowerment comes from the most shocking experiences. But Trish, look at it. Would you really want somebody to coach you that didn't know anything about what you experienced?
Oh, no, not at all. And I've ran into that a few times. You know, you have to work to find somebody that really understands what you've gone through and what kind of support services you actually need, because each of us are different and each of us have our own perceptions and tolerances, so it affects us differently, and our resilience is different. So it's really got to be specific for you.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to have a lot of faith in a guide that's going to lead you through the jungle if he's never seen a jungle before.
Indeed it is. Indeed.
Tell us about your book and what inspired you to write it.
My Justice actually came about during a period that some very serious trauma injuries had come back to haunt me, kind of, and caused interference that I had to go off work. And it began a process of looking back at why I was suffering and having to give up my career because of these injuries. And it started my brain twirling, sitting home. I had to find a way to get things out and get things understood. And the most important part for me was to try and explain it to my children, because I had watched in their adult lives how their relationships and what they were tolerating inside of their homes actually was affecting my grandchildren. And I just got so upset at the fact of, my God, when is it going to end? What happened? How did this all happen? And why is it still going on in my family? So I started looking back, and I started writing what was going to be just journals to help my children. Um, and you know, it became something that I absolutely had to publish for everyone else.
So you saw that some of the experiences, at least emotionally, in your life were reflecting through another generation.
Indeed, indeed. It was going into my grandchildren's lives and affecting their emotional behaviors. So to me, I had to explain to them and apologize to them, hoping that someday they would read it and see that what's happening began a very long time ago, as it has with many of us.
We are victims of our generational upbringing.
Indeed, indeed. We learn it time and time again, and it has gone on since the beginning of mankind. The Romans had slaves. Back in the days of, you know, we were women and children were property that could be beaten publicly and used however they were deemed by their owner, their male husband or controller. And it was not until 1984 that we created laws against when the Child Protection Act came out. 1994, the Violence Against Women Act, and only in 2014 did we finally include the word male so that men could be provided with the same victim services as women. Not all family offenders, which family offenders actually make up 92% of all child maltreatment reports across the country. That's been proven year after year for the past 10 years. But yet we don't look at the family offenders or prosecute the family offenders in the same way. And they have so much direct power to control every movement of the family, the child, to prevent them from reaching resources, to trap them in that silence and enslave them in that terror. So we cannot change anything until we are brave enough to realize that, we have to open that door a little bit. I'm all for parental rights and the right to raise your children, but it has to be healthy and it has to be safe. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it at least needs to be safe and healthy.
It's amazing how many people don't grasp the simple context that if you wouldn't want somebody doing that to you, why are you doing it to someone else?
Correct. The golden rule, right?
Right.
And I have that so much in my spirit, and I raised my children to be gentle and respectful of other people. They will stand by a friend in need, but at the same time, um, there are those parts where other people feel, the world owes me. They have to take care of me. It's their job. And it's, um, you know, there's a lot of anger that can erupt. And because things don't go their way, they start becoming more dominant and controlling in what they can, which is the environment and the people inside of that very private home.
So you're telling me that people that are very insecure and don't have the self-confidence to provide for themselves look for someone else to force to provide for them. Force, I mean sometimes literally physically, sometimes I mean force them emotionally through guilt. You owe me, the world owes me. Force through immaturity and refusal to stand up and take responsibility for one's life. Force by doing anything and everything except standing up and being responsible for one's life.
Exactly. And if they uh, are growing up in a violent atmosphere, it becomes their world. And I talk a lot when I do my speaking engagements and my trainings today on the subject of family offenders. Um, the biggest thing that I address is called terroristic abuse. Now, this is burning and branding and captivity and slavery and forced servitude and sex trafficking and grievous physical injury that is being done by family offenders. But yet, family members, the circle of neighbors, the schools, the healthcare system, the law enforcement, so many are still in that pattern of looking past a family offender and actually, instead of stepping up when they should, they leave this child to grow in this atmosphere. The child grows believing that is going to be their life. That's all they deserve because nobody else cares. Why should they care? They start getting into drugs. They start getting into gangs. They start going to the streets. They become prey for traffickers and kidnappers and who knows what. Then they become runaway and throwaway children, which is beyond me. And a society stands back and says, you know what? We've been doing this for centuries, so I don't understand what everybody's whining about. I got over it, and they will too. There are actual scientific studies that prove trauma inflicted on children causes an eruption in their frontal lobe brain development. As they grow and these traumas repeatedly happen, it interferes with different parts of their psyche, their ability to make choices, how they react to others, how they act out in school, what kind of behaviors they display to family, to persons of authority. These are all signals that, hey, something's very wrong and we need to pay attention to this child and see if we can help them. My life was very much ignored by 1,500 people in a small community that knew exactly who I belonged to, who my parents were, and how extreme the danger was.
Post-traumatic stress disorder is recognized when our soldiers come home from war, but we refuse to recognize it in our children in the homes where they have been physically and emotionally battered.
Indeed, and it happens repeatedly. I've done a few articles on that topic. I've researched the ptsd.va.gov website. And while they are very much heightened about the military coming home and having to have served maybe 3 or 4 days at a time in fierce battle, and but yet they're provided with all of the other necessities, food, water, clothing. They come back, they hang out with their buddies, and they're able to talk about these things with each other. Our children, on the other hand, and persons who are trapped inside of a violent home don't have that option. They don't have anyone to turn to. They believe that the threats against their life to keep them from getting help are actually going to be carried out. Maybe it's with weapons. Maybe it's with harming a person in the family. Maybe it's raping a child. Whatever it is, these are constant daily sufferings that they have to struggle to just survive every day without being hurt. When they grow up, we just want to tell them it's nothing. So what? It happened. It's sex. You'll always have sex. Well, it's not the same when you are 6 years old and suddenly at 11 years old, you're being offered out to 5, 6, 7 different grown men for the price of a couple of beers, and that becomes your every weekend. It's not the same when that child is being beaten to a pulp or, at 12, there was an incident that my older brother and my sister were sent upstairs to bed. My stepfather was drunk. He wanted his quote unquote playtime with me. It was a regular nightly routine. And he had bought me this gown, little see-through gown from Victoria's Secrets that my mother allowed him to buy for me as a special present. And I was supposed to put this gown on anytime he wanted playtime. And I took a chance and I stole a pair of my brother's thick flannel, heavy pajamas, the boy pajamas, buttoned it all the way up to the top. And I really thought that this was going to be my armor. This was going to protect me. Somehow these flannel pajamas have magic, and they were going to keep him away from me. I was so severely beaten that night with a leather strap all the way through our bottom level, the top level, bottom level of our house. And my brother and sister are upstairs, and I know they can hear me screaming and crying. In the end, he trapped me in the small vanity of our bathroom in the back of the house by the laundry room, raped me, and told me, that I was so horrible and how dare I think I can get away from him. And then he grabbed me by the hair and he threw me on a big dirty pile of laundry. And as I laid there, I remember thinking, Just let me disappear. I'm garbage. I'm nothing. I'm filth. Just let me go away into this laundry. Um, this was normal. Um, they take away whatever armor we want to defend ourselves with. So as we grow and these nightmares and these hauntings and these behaviors have influenced us, our emotional responses, our reactions to different things, our secondary triggers, the woundings that we have to live with, life distortion patterns, life choices, safe choices. It becomes very broken, and we end up needing ongoing health care, mental health care, spending billions and billions and billions of taxpayer dollars to help millions and millions of children each and every year. So, it's a vicious cycle that we have to end, and we can only do that together. My mother knew. I had ran away 3 times before I was 12 years old, running to the cemetery, begging for God to make me a boy or to just take me away completely. I ran away hoping that somebody would help me, but instead my parents, usually my mother, found me, brought me back home, and it all started all over again. And in fact, I had angered him so badly because I took the chance to run away that made my punishment even that much more severe. Our neighbors watched him beat me in the street, and I still carry the scars internally and externally that have been a huge challenge for me to try to live a life as what society would consider to be normal and be self-productive and achieve successful careers. If you don't believe in yourself, if you don't have that sense of value, you accept a lower grade in pay for work that you are doing when they're paying somebody else 5 times more than you. You don't believe that you are worthy of meeting anyone's expectations. So you hide and you do the best you can, and you fight through every scrap that you possibly can to find something to hang on to keep going. And for me, that was my kids. If I didn't have my kids, I know that when I tried to commit suicide at 22, I would not have called for somebody to come and help and stay with my children. I would have succeeded, and I wouldn't be here today. And the violence that I've gone through as a result of what I was trained to tolerate, what society watched happen, and never once questioned my welfare. In my adult relationships, I've been almost drowned. I've had multiple weapons at my head. I've been hogtied to a bed and deadbolted in a second-floor apartment for a couple of days. I have been strangled numerous times, multiples of head traumas, beaten beyond my own recognition, broken ribs, 2 broken collarbones, and a very broken and messed up spine, including trauma that was so hard it actually bruised my spinal cord, and it's what causes my difficulties in function and abilities today. So at 53, I am still a complete mess, and so is my family. And I figure I have to do something. We've got to help people. And I think the most inspiring thing has been the reviews for the book, My Justice, which have been absolutely unbelievable. And it was used in a therapy class out in La Sierra University by Dr. Brenda Joyce Marker Green. She taught an online course. It was used there. I have educators that use it. I have advocates that use it. I have survivors that keep it on their bed table so that they can read both the inspiration that I provide in there for them to believe. Don't give up. No matter how bad it is, you can do it. You got to do it. Because if you don't do it, those are the numbers that we lose in suicides every year because they can't find their way through. So we have to make sure that stories like My Justice, Lynn Tolson's Beyond the Tears, um, I've interviewed so many survivors in the radio shows that I've done that I've got connections all the way around the world, men, women, teens I've helped. It's just amazing how strong that bond and how many familiar self-destructive patterns each and every one of us live, and how we felt that deep inner sense that we just needed to die. So you really got to scrap and hold on for life in some way and just find something to keep going. My keep going is my children and changing how we handle these cases today. There's an average, according to the CDC, of 1 in 4 homes affected by some form of violence and control. So consider that number in the children inside those families. We have, I researched and published a report on the 2011 child maltreatment statistics as per the National Child Abuse and Neglect Database, where everything is entered into across the country. And I took it to Congressman Shimkus here locally. And I said, hey, look at this. I can prove to you right now that 1 in 9 children are suffering reported sexual abuse, 1 in 9 being reported. However, in 2012, Congress addressed a statement about campus and military sexual assault that said sexual assault concerning adults, for every 1 report that is made, at least 6 others are not. View that in the eye of children that are controlled by families, and they have the authority to say where that child goes, who they talk to, and train them how to act. So then, even if we allow that 1 variable of that 6, that takes our 1 in 9 down to 1 in 3. So we can't say that it's not a pandemic. It is the disease. I consider it a disease because it's something that has invaded human man since the beginning of our time. It is the greatest thing to invade more lives, cause more suicides, cause more homicides, cause more destructive to children, cause more mental health problems, drug addictions, self-hatred, loathing, homelessness, criminals. This is the disease that we have to conquer today. Getting a healthy home and providing the services for survivors to heal. And in that, they need to be able to share their experiences and find support in return.
The sexual slavery of human beings is the highest it has ever been in recorded history worldwide. And where do those ideas come from? They come from being raised around people that thinks it's okay. They come from extreme dual standards. In a logical world, in an intelligent world, how can sex make one person a hero and another a slut? How can sex make one person grand and another worthless? That is insane.
Indeed. And it happens all the time. We view the victims, we blame that. I've worked with many single moms who have children, young children, and they are forcing their children to be silent about different harms that are happening inside the home. Maybe it's just violence. For one teenager, it was sexual harm. And her mother was saying, you can't tell anyone. We won't have a home. They'll come and they'll split our family apart. This 14-year-old child was carrying this on her shoulders. And she was responsible for keeping her family together because her mom wanted to make sure that she had a roof over her head.
I can identify with that one, kid.
Right? Okay. It happens so much. And not just for young women, but for young men. Everybody, I know the age-old statute is out there that, men are rarely victims of these crimes. But in truth, when you break it down, between the ages of 6 and 15 years old, it's 50-50. Boys are 48.5% of all victims. Young girls are 51% of all victims. So there is all of these men who have never been able to speak about what has happened because you're strong, you're silent, you're brave, you got to be strong, you can't show any emotion, and you've got to be the leader. Well, they become predators, or they become so drunken and buried in all of this pain. So we've got to help on both sides. And I'm hoping that by reading My Justice, by connecting with the information that I published on Butterfly Dreams Abuse Recovery, and in the Family Crimes Training presentation, looking at the acts of terroristic abuse, the effects of drug and alcohol addiction, suicides, criminal behaviors, the healthy maintenance of family, frontal lobe brain impairments of children, misdiagnosis of ADHD that they are now saying quite possibly could be early onset PTSD when they start looking and researching the victims' lives. So there's a big circle around all of this hidden ugliness that goes on inside our homes. And it can't happen anymore. We have to stop that. We want our laws to protect us when we're on the street, and we want our laws to protect us as adults. Children have those same rights and those same laws. And even if they got to protect them inside their homes, that's that duty, that's that obligation, that's our Constitution, that's our freedom.
I'm sure that your book is going to help a lot of people, and your speaking is helping a lot of those people that the book can't even reach. I want to thank you so much for being on this program and helping to educate people that behind closed doors does not mean safe security.
Excellent statement. Thank you.
I want to thank you for being on this program and for all you do and for your connection and your help with a beautiful organization called Safe Kids Now.
Indeed. Very happy to be acquainted with Stephanie Mann, yourself, and I look so forward to where we can go in the future. It's going to be amazing. We are going to do this for our kids. I really do believe that.